The studio lights blazed down on Clint Eastwood as he walked onto the set of the late-night talk show, his heart steady, his mind sharp. He had been a star for decades, but tonight felt different. The host, Jimmy Knight, was known for his biting humor and for pushing boundaries, but Clint wasn't nervous. He had faced tougher challenges before. However, there was something in the air tonight, an undercurrent of tension that Clint could sense the moment he stepped onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause as Clint sat down across from Jimmy, who was smiling, but there was a gleam in his eyes, a kind of mockery hidden beneath the surface. "Clint, it's an honor to have you on the show," Jimmy said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. Clint nodded politely, his calm demeanor not giving away anything. "It's good to be here, Jimmy," Clint replied, his voice steady. The two exchanged a few pleasantries, but Clint could feel the tension building as Jimmy started asking him questions that felt more like jabs than genuine curiosity. "So, Clint," Jimmy began, leaning forward, "you've been in the business for what, almost 6 decades now? That's a lot of time to become irrelevant. How does it feel to know that you're just a relic of the past?" The audience chuckled at Jimmy's remark, and Clint could see the delight in the host's eyes. But Clint didn't flinch. He had been called worse, faced worse. He wasn't about to let Jimmy's words get under his skin. Instead, he smiled, his eyes calm, his posture unshaken. "Well, Jimmy," Clint said, his voice smooth, "I guess it feels good to still be here, still relevant enough to be sitting across from you." The crowd fell silent for a moment, unsure of how to react to Clint's quiet but sharp comeback. Jimmy's smile faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. "Touché, Clint," he said, before launching into another question. "But let's talk about your last few movies, shall we? Critics didn't exactly give you glowing reviews. Do you think it's time for you to retire and let the new generation take over?" Jimmy's tone was condescending, but Clint's expression remained unchanged. "Retire?" Clint repeated, his voice low, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Jimmy, I think the new generation can learn a lot from the old one. Maybe they'll understand how to make movies that stand the test of time. They'll find out that it's not just about the flash, it's about the heart of the story." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the energy in the room beginning to change. Jimmy, realizing he had met resistance, pressed on. "Come on, Clint. Don't you think it's a bit embarrassing to still be trying to chase fame at your age?" Jimmy said with a sly grin. "I mean, at some point, doesn't it get old?" Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a shift in his demeanor, a quiet intensity that spoke volumes. "You see, Jimmy, the difference between me and you is that I don't need to chase fame," Clint said slowly, his words deliberate. "Fame is something that comes and goes, but respect? That's something that you earn over time by being true to yourself and doing your work with integrity. I've earned my respect, and that's something you'll never understand." The room went dead silent. For the first time, the audience could feel the tension between the two men. Jimmy's grin slipped, replaced by an awkward chuckle. Well, Clint, I guess you've still got some fight in you," Jimmy said, trying to recover. But Clint wasn't done yet. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving Jimmy's. "You know, Jimmy," he said, his voice suddenly much more serious, "I've been asked a lot of stupid questions in my life. But this one, you've crossed a line. Respect isn't something you can joke about, it's not something you can mock for a laugh. You want to know why I'm still here? Because I've built a career, not on cheap gimmicks, but on quality. I've earned my place in this industry. You, on the other hand, are here because of ratings. You can't fool people with a smile and a joke. People see through that." The room fell even quieter, the audience hanging on every word. Jimmy shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the weight of Clint's words sinking in. "You know what?" Clint continued, his voice gaining strength. "Maybe you're right about one thing. I am a relic of something real, and maybe that's exactly why I'm still here." Clint stood up, his chair scraping against the floor, his movements slow and deliberate. He walked to the center of the stage, his presence commanding attention. "You want to mock me for being old, for being from a different time? Go ahead. But don't mistake age for weakness. I've been through more than you could ever imagine, and I'm still standing. If you want to learn something, Jimmy, it's not about making fun of people who have lived through something. It's about respecting them. Maybe you should try that." With that, Clint turned and walked off the stage, leaving Jimmy and the audience in stunned silence. As Clint exited the studio, the weight of what had just happened hung in the air. He had turned the tables. He had not only stood up for himself, but had given everyone a lesson in respect, humility, and the importance of integrity. The talk show host, for once, had been silenced. Clint had once again reminded the world why he was not just a legend in Hollywood, but a man who commanded respect, no matter what the circumstances were. The aftermath of Clint Eastwood's fiery encounter on the talk show spread like wildfire across social media. Clips of the interview were shared millions of times, and the internet was buzzing with comments. Some people praised Clint for his calm yet powerful response, while others sided with Jimmy, saying Clint had overreacted. But Clint wasn't paying attention to the noise. He had done what needed to be done. As Clint sat at his home watching the reactions unfold on his phone, he couldn't help but think about the deeper message he wanted to convey. He didn't mind the spotlight, but he hoped people took something more meaningful from his words than just a confrontation. Respect, integrity, these were the core of everything Clint had worked for in his career. As the days went by, Clint received an unexpected call. It was from the show's producer. "Mr. Eastwood," the producer said nervously, "we're really sorry for what happened during the interview. Jimmy didn't mean any harm, and we'd love to have you back on the show. If you're willing to come back, we'll give you the floor to speak your mind. No interruptions, no jokes." Clint paused for a moment, considering the offer. He wasn't the kind of man who let things slide, but he wasn't one to back down, either. "I'll come back," Clint said finally. "But not for Jimmy. I'll come back to set the record straight." A week later, Clint was back on the set, standing tall with a determined expression as the cameras rolled once again. Jimmy greeted him with a nervous smile, clearly aware of the tension that still lingered from their last meeting. But Clint wasn't here for small talk or pleasantries. He was here to deliver a message. "Good evening, everyone," Clint began, his voice steady and commanding. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Clint glanced at Jimmy, who was sitting next to him, visibly tense. "The last time I was here," Clint continued, "I said a lot of things. I stood up for myself, and I think I got the message across. But tonight I want to take a step back and talk about something that's even more important than personal pride. I want to talk about respect. Respect for the people who paved the way, respect for the people who work hard every day, and respect for the ones who have faced struggles we may never fully understand." Clint paused, looking directly at the camera. "I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've seen it all. I've seen how things have changed, how times have evolved, but one thing has always remained constant: respect. It's something you earn, not something you demand. It's something that transcends age, experience, and status." Jimmy shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Clint ignored him, focusing solely on the audience. "There's a dangerous trend in our society today," Clint continued, his voice growing more serious. "A trend where people are quick to tear others down to make themselves feel better, where mocking someone's age, experience, or background is seen as funny or entertaining. But let me tell you something. Mockery is not entertainment. It's the easy way out. Real entertainment, real respect comes from appreciating what others bring to the table, from learning from their experiences, not belittling them." The room was silent, the audience riveted by Clint's powerful words. Even Jimmy, who had been prepared for another round of snide remarks, couldn't find anything to say. Clint's presence was overwhelming. "So, Jimmy," Clint said, turning his attention to the host, "I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here to remind you, and everyone watching, that respect isn't something that's given lightly. It's something you earn through your actions, through your words, and through the way you treat others." Jimmy swallowed hard, his face reddening with embarrassment. For the first time since Clint had walked onto the set, he looked unsure of himself. Clint wasn't done yet. It's easy to poke fun, to take cheap shots. It's harder to show genuine respect. But if we want to be better, if we want to create a world where people feel valued, we have to start with respect. And that means listening to each other, understanding each other and lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. Clint's words hung in the air, powerful and unyielding. The audience, who had been watching this unfold in real time, could feel the weight of his message. This wasn't just about a confrontation. It was about something much bigger. "I'm not here for apologies, Jimmy," Clint said, looking directly at the host. "I'm here to ask you and everyone watching to think about how we treat others, how we value them, because at the end of the day, that's what truly matters." The tension in the room was palpable as Clint stood up from his chair. He gave the audience one last look, his expression resolute. "Respect isn't just a word, folks," he said. "It's a way of life." And with that, Clint walked off the set once again, leaving a stunned silence behind him. This time, however, the message had been made clear, not just to Jimmy but to everyone watching. Clint Eastwood wasn't just a Hollywood legend. He was a man of principles, a man who knew that respect was the foundation of everything worth having. Clint Eastwood's words continued to echo across the media after his second appearance on the talk show. The impact of his message about respect had spread beyond the studio, igniting discussions in homes, offices, and social media platforms. People from all walks of life were reflecting on their own actions and the way they treated others. It was clear Clint had sparked something deeper than just an argument with a talk show host. He had sparked a movement. The next morning, Jimmy Knight woke up to a flood of messages. Some were supportive, telling him he'd been wrong and how he'd treated Clint, while others criticized him for not defending himself more aggressively. The majority of the messages, however, came from people who agreed with Clint's message, and that was the hardest pill for Jimmy to swallow. He prided himself on his wit, his sharp tongue, but it was obvious that Clint had outshone him in a way he hadn't expected. Jimmy had underestimated Clint, and now he was paying the price. But Clint wasn't interested in gloating over his victory. He went about his day as usual, doing what he loved. He spent time with his family, worked on his next project, and continued to enjoy the peace of his life. Still, he knew the journey wasn't over. He had to make sure his message was heard, not just in the media, but by the people who needed it the most. Later that week, Clint received a call from a community center in his hometown. The center had heard about his talk show appearance and invited him to speak at an upcoming event. They wanted him to talk about respect, integrity, and the importance of standing up for what's right. Clint agreed immediately, knowing this was another chance to share his values with a larger audience. As he arrived at the community center, Clint was greeted by a crowd of eager faces. There were young adults, teenagers, even parents who had come to hear him speak. The room was filled with a palpable energy, a hunger for change, for guidance. Clint stepped up to the podium and surveyed the crowd. For a moment, he simply took it all in. These were the people who would carry his message forward. They were the next generation. "Good evening, everyone," Clint began, his voice warm, but firm. "I'm glad to be here tonight. I've spent most of my life in front of cameras, but the real work happens off-screen, in real life. That's where the true test of character lies." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "I've been asked a lot of questions in my career," Clint continued, "but one of the most important ones I've had to answer is this. What does respect really mean?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. We talk about respect as if it's something you can give or take. But respect isn't just about how you treat others. It's about how you treat yourself, how you hold yourself accountable, how you live by the principles that guide you. Clint's eyes scanned the crowd, connecting with people in the audience. "When I stood up on that talk show, I wasn't just defending myself. I was defending everyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or ridiculed. I was defending the idea that no one should be treated as less than because of their age, their background, or the way they look. We all have something valuable to offer." He let the words sink in, watching as the crowd absorbed the message. Respect is earned through actions, through the way you treat people, not just when they're watching, but when no one is looking. If we want to change the world, we need to start with how we treat one another, how we show up in the world, how we show up for the people around us. As Clint spoke, he could see the spark of understanding in the eyes of the young people in the room. He could feel the energy shift, the ripple of change spreading. They weren't just listening, they were internalizing what he was saying, and that gave Clint hope for the future. After his speech, Clint stayed around to talk to the audience. People came up to him, thanking him for his words, sharing their own stories of how they had been disrespected or belittled. Clint listened patiently, offering quiet encouragement, sharing a few words of wisdom. As the night drew to a close, Clint stood outside the community center, feeling a sense of fulfillment. This was what mattered, the impact he could make on the people whose lives could be changed by a simple message of respect. As he drove home, Clint's phone rang. It was Jimmy Knight. Clint didn't hesitate to answer. "Clint," Jimmy said, sounding genuinely humble, "I want to apologize. I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation, and you were right. I treated you like a joke, and I shouldn't have. I've always prided myself on being quick with the comebacks, but I realize now that I was wrong. You've inspired me to do better. I want to change the way I treat people, and I want to show more respect. I just wanted to let you know that." Clint smiled, his voice softening. "I appreciate that, Jimmy. It's not easy to admit when you're wrong, but that's how change starts. The most important thing is that you're willing to do better. That's all we can do." After they hung up, Clint leaned back in his seat, feeling a sense of peace. It wasn't just about the confrontation anymore. It was about something much larger, a shift in how people viewed each other. Clint had made his mark, not with anger, but with quiet strength. He had turned the tables not through force, but through words that would continue to resonate for years to come. Weeks passed after Clint's heartfelt speech at the community center, but the reverberations of his words continued to influence everyone around him. The world, in a way, had started to shift. People began to reflect on their own actions, their treatment of others, and most importantly, respect. Clint's life seemed to return to its usual routine, but the quiet sense of satisfaction lingered. He had done something meaningful, something he knew would last longer than any movie or award he had ever received. The message he had sent had struck a chord. But then, out of the blue, Clint received an unexpected letter. It was handwritten, addressed to him in a neat, elegant script. Intrigued, he opened it carefully, unfolding the paper inside. The letter was from an old friend, a director Clint had worked with many years ago. The letter read, "Dear Clint, I've been following everything that's been going on recently. Your talk show appearance, your speech at the community center. It's been incredible. And it made me realize something. I've been working in this industry for decades, but I've never truly understood the power of respect. Your words changed that for me, and I've been doing some soul searching. We're working on a new project, a film that's close to my heart, and I think you're the only one who can bring it to life. I want you to be part of this. It's not just about the story, it's about sharing something that's real, something that will inspire. I hope you'll consider it. Sincerely, Tom Harper." Clint smiled as he read the letter. He had worked with Tom on several projects in the past, and Tom had always been one to push boundaries in his films. But this letter felt different. It wasn't just about making another movie, it was about something bigger. Clint didn't need to think long before he picked up the phone. "Tom," he said after the call was answered, "I got your letter. I'm in." "Really?" Tom's voice crackled with excitement. "I can't tell you how much that means to me, Clint. This project, well, it's going to be something special." Clint leaned back in his chair, feeling a sense of purpose fill him once again. This wasn't just about taking on another role. It was about using his platform for something greater. The film would be more than just entertainment. It would carry a message, much like the one Clint had shared with the world. Over the next few weeks, Clint immersed himself in the script. The story was raw and emotional, exploring themes of overcoming adversity, showing respect for others, and standing up for what's right, even when the world tries to bring you down. It was exactly the kind of film Clint felt needed to be made, especially in a time when society seemed so fractured. As filming began, Clint found himself surrounded by a young cast and crew, many of whom were inspired by his reputation and what he stood for. They respected him, not just for his legendary status in Hollywood, but for his genuine commitment to making a difference in the world. There was one particular young actor, Jason, who stood out to Clint. Jason was relatively new to the industry, eager but still uncertain about his place in it. He often sought Clint's advice, and Clint was more than happy to share what he had learned over the years. One evening, after a long day of filming, Jason sat next to Clint on a bench outside the set. "Clint," Jason began, "I've been thinking a lot about everything you've said. The way you handled the talk show, the way you're always so calm and collected. I don't know if I could ever do that." Clint looked over at him, his expression thoughtful. "Jason," he said slowly, "calm and collected doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't fight for what's right. It just means you pick your battles and you choose the right way to fight them. The most important thing in this industry and in life is to stay true to who you are. Don't let anyone change that." Jason nodded, absorbing every word Clint said. "It's hard sometimes," Jason admitted. "There's so much pressure, so many people telling you how to be, what to do. How do you stay true to yourself when everyone else is trying to shape you into something else?" Clint smiled, a glimmer of wisdom in his eyes. "You stay true by understanding that you don't need to please everyone. If you know you're doing the right thing, that's enough. People will come and go, but the person you look at in the mirror every day, that's the one who matters most." The next day on set, Clint's words stuck with Jason. He walked, with a little more confidence, a little more resolve. Clint had shown him that true strength came from within, not from what others expected, but from the values and principles you held close to your heart. As filming continued, Clint's presence became even more impactful on set. His professionalism, his respect for everyone involved in the production, and his dedication to the story elevated the entire project. The film quickly became something special, a powerful testament to Clint's values and the message he had been spreading for months. By the time they wrapped up filming, the project had garnered significant attention. People knew this wasn't just another Clint Eastwood movie. It was a film with a purpose. It was a story that resonated with audiences on a deep personal level. As the movie premiered, Clint sat in the audience surrounded by the cast and crew, waiting for the lights to dim. He had no idea how the world would respond, but one thing was certain: this film would leave a lasting impact. And as the credits rolled, Clint couldn't help but feel proud. This wasn't just a victory in his career, it was a victory for the message he had been spreading. A victory for respect, for integrity, and for standing up for what's right. The premiere night had come and gone, and Clint could feel the positive energy swirling around the film. Audiences were moved, critics were impressed, and the message of respect had found its place in the hearts of many. But Clint wasn't done yet. He knew this film was just the beginning of something bigger, something that would take more than just one movie to change the world. The film's success had put Clint back in the spotlight, but this time it wasn't just because of his legendary status. It was because people believed in the message he was sending. The press conferences, the interviews, and the magazine covers all spoke of the same thing. Clint Eastwood wasn't just an actor or director. He was now a symbol of respect and integrity in Hollywood. One morning, Clint received a call from an unexpected source. It was from the head of a major charity organization focused on youth development and mentorship. "Mr. Eastwood," the voice on the other end began, "I'm Sarah Miller, and I'm reaching out to you because of your recent work and the impact it's had. We've been following your journey, and we believe you're the perfect person to help us with an initiative we're launching. It's about empowering young people to understand the importance of respect, self-worth, and standing up for what's right. We'd love for you to be the face of this campaign." Clint sat back in his chair, surprised by the offer. He had always been involved in charitable causes, but this was different. This was about more than just donations or charity events. It was about creating a cultural shift. "I'm honored," Clint replied, his voice steady. "Tell me more about this initiative." Sarah explained that the organization was launching a nationwide program for schools, offering mentorship and workshops aimed at teaching young people about respect, kindness, and standing up against bullying and injustice. The campaign would feature public service announcements, school outreach programs, and media partnerships, all focusing on creating positive change in the next generation. Clint listened carefully, nodding as Sarah spoke. This was exactly what he had been hoping for, an opportunity to make a long-lasting difference in the lives of young people. "I'm in," Clint said without hesitation. "Count me in." The campaign kicked off with Clint speaking at schools across the country, sharing his experiences and the lessons he had learned over his long career. At each school, Clint spoke about his journey, not just in Hollywood but in life. He talked about the importance of respecting others, standing up for yourself and your beliefs, and the power of kindness. He didn't sugarcoat his life. He told the students about the struggles he had faced, the challenges he had overcome, and the mistakes he had made along the way. But he always came back to the same message. It's never too late to change, and we're all responsible for the way we treat others. The kids loved him. They saw him not as a movie star but as someone they could relate to, someone who had been through the same tough times they had, someone who had overcome adversity and come out stronger on the other side. His message resonated deeply with them. One day, after an event at a school in a small town, Clint was approached by a young girl named Emily. She was about 14, shy but determined. "Mr. Eastwood," she said softly, "I just wanted to thank you for what you said today. I've been bullied for years and I didn't know how to stand up for myself. But after hearing you speak, I feel like I can do it now. I'm going to start standing up for myself and others. You've really inspired me." Clint knelt down, to her level, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Emily," he said with warmth, "you're stronger than you think. Always remember, no one has the right to treat you poorly. Respect yourself first, and others will follow. Don't be afraid to speak up. The world needs more people like you." The sincerity in Clint's voice made Emily's eyes shine with hope. He had given her something she had been missing, the belief that she had the power to change her circumstances. Clint continued to travel the country, meeting students, parents, and teachers, each time reinforcing the importance of respect. The campaign had a ripple effect. Students who had once been shy and quiet were now finding their voices. Bullying rates in schools began to decrease. The message was spreading faster than anyone had expected. One evening, after a particularly successful event in New York, Clint sat in his hotel room reflecting on everything that had happened. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. It was a message from his friend Tom Harper, the director. "Clint, I've been thinking. Your campaign is incredible, but what if we could take it further? What if we made a documentary about your journey, your work with the youth, and the impact it's having on people's lives? A film that shows the real-life effects of standing up for respect and integrity, something that could inspire people around the world." Clint smiled to himself. It was a perfect idea. "Let's do it," he typed back. The documentary would take Clint's message to an even wider audience, showing not just his words but the real, tangible changes happening because of them. It would be the final piece of the puzzle, the crowning achievement of Clint's mission to spread respect and kindness across the world. As Clint prepared for this next step in his journey, he felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. He had not only changed the course of his own life, but he had inspired a movement, a wave of respect that would continue to grow long after he was gone.